whistling in the wind. All right. Let's use the look a treat, that's good.
Hi there, welcome to this video for the 20th weekend since lockdown was first initiated in the UK. We've been through sort of three phases really: lockdown, and then the lifting of some restrictions, and now it just feels like some of the restrictions are being sort of imposed again. Aberdeen yesterday in Scotland, the latest city to have restrictions imposed again, pubs and shops closing, etc. Nightmare. The weather today is beautiful, and I think it's going to be nice all weekend. So the reason that I started this video with the 7300 is because I've done a separate video, but basically I've made improvements to my to the configuration of my top band end-fed wire. If you look here, some of you will probably already immediately realise that the height of the antenna has been increased by, well, it's been more than doubled from sort of 3 meters to sort of 6.5, 7 meters above the ground. Well, most of it anyway. And I've been able to do that by adding in an extra pole here, increasing the height of that pole homebrew structure at the end of it, and now it just basically travels straight down the garden from the house. And what's made that, well, the result of all that is that instead of a sort of very, every time I do this a plane flies over. That led to me agreeing to do something else. Anything, there he is. I haven't got my glasses on, so I could hardly see it. Anyway, so what it's resulted in, basically a less convoluted route for the actual wire. So instead of zigzagging down the garden, it's more of a sort of horizontal L shape, and much higher above the ground. So the hope was that would sort of translate into being heard with a stronger signal at the various QTHs of the Harwell amateur radio club members that participate in the HF net. And as I explained on my other video, that's not actually the case. Basically, I was heard exactly the same.
Today to be around 4 p.m. today down here. They're expecting about 36, so we'll see. Let's hope it's not too hot. But I shall go out and water the garden later on this evening to try and revive a few things.
So we have a sked later, starts at 8:30 on top band, and then carries on 80 meters, sort of QSY about sort of 8:45, 9 o'clock. So I'll be using this antenna. The thing with it is that I used it in this configuration on Wednesday, and the reports I got back on that one occasion were basically, I'm being heard essentially the same as I was, 5.8, 5.9 with most people on 80 meters. But, and that is empirical, that's empirical, that's measured, they're picking up my signal, they're looking at the signal meter, that's fine. But because of the other variables, obviously mostly propagation, that's not a big enough sample for it to kind of be meaningful. So I'm going to have to just run the antenna in this configuration for the next few weeks and look at my average signal, how it's been received by the guys, compared to my average signal with the kind of previous configuration. One thing I can say is that it definitely matches up as well as the original configuration, possibly slightly better. I still run my antennas through an MFJ matching unit. I just prefer to do that, even though this particular radio has got an auto matching system.
59 plus 20 all the way through.
So,
and hi Sam, glad you're back. My God, there were some horrible noises
and
just as you went off.
So it matches very, very quickly. The first time I matched it, it took about 2 seconds, so it wasn't a struggle for the radio to match it through the MFJ. And I'm hearing signals. The band was a bit dead earlier; it's picking up a bit now. So this weekend I'm going to be working 80 meters, particularly, and top band, and just to sort of try and get a feel for how well this antenna is working. I mean, it's still. The purpose of this antenna really is still for top band, was to get on top band. The downside actually is that it's actually at one point quite close to the G5RV, which isn't helpful at all. My first concern really was when I did this was, can everybody still hear me? Not really, and then hopefully maybe they can hear me a little bit better. But like I said, just test and test again, just to kind of be sure about the performance of it. The number of radials hasn't changed. The earth rod, still got 25 radials, 5 meters in length, and then three quarter wave radials, and that part of it hasn't changed. And anyway, I'm hearing people now, so definitely be spending a bit of time on the 7300. The other thing I tried to do was I tried to put up my Diamond Colinear 77's 2 meter antenna that was lent to me by one of the Harwell ARS members, Tim, M0KP. Very kind of him. I lent him one of my Welbrook loops, and which I think he's enjoying using. And big problem with this is that obviously it's much bigger and much heavier. Well, it's much bigger, not much heavier than my homebrew Colinear that was kindly made for me by G1ZMA, which is, you can see, is on the top of that pole again. There you go. I can hardly see anything because I've got my glasses on. It's very sunny out here. So basically, a couple of afternoons ago, I took all that down. I took the antenna off it and I attached the Diamond antenna, and realised immediately that one fishing pole was never ever going to support it. But I had a spare, which is over there now, which is the one that I used for the top band wire. And I strapped two of these antennas together, two of the poles together, and then tried to lift it. And kind of as I was moving it through from the horizontal plane into vertical, it literally, the end section of both of these poles snapped, I don't know, about half a foot. So I realised then that wasn't going to work. Now that was really annoying, obviously, more so because it meant that to stay on 2 meters I had to basically put everything back together, which I've done. So and I'm now running FT8. But as luck would have it, literally a couple of days later, the Harwell ARS kind of group got an email from one of the members saying that she had a telescopic aluminium kind of pole suitable for attaching antennas to, going spare. She wasn't going to use it, free to a good home. So and even better, so I emailed her and said, yeah, I'll take it off your hands. Even better, when she gave me her address, she literally lives about 1 minute's drive from my factory in Abingdon. So I literally was in work the other day, yesterday, and went to her house and picked it up, and here it is. And it's aluminium, it's pretty strong, it's telescopic with a sort of screw thread for locking each section into place. It doesn't flex very much at all, and the only downside really is it's only 4 meters in length. But what I've also got is a piece of very sort of sturdy plastic waste pipe, which is inserted into the bottom section all the way to the end. But basically what it means is that I can attach that to the bottom of this pole, attach the antenna to the top, strap it to the fence, because it's all pretty lightweight still, and I reckon I can probably get the antenna maybe 6 meters above the ground, which won't be that far away. It won't be as high as my existing antenna, but it won't be that far away. It'll be a bit lower down. But this Diamond should be a much better performer than the homebrew, even though that homebrew is doing pretty well. So so that was a spot of luck really, to get that for nothing. So what I'm doing right now, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and put this up over the weekend, but until I do, I'm running FT8 on with using that antenna, and I'll just show you that. So I want to sort of make a comparison really of both antennas, and FT8 is a really good way of doing that because you can leave it running for hours and days, and obviously with PSK Reporter you get a map. Let me have a look, see if we're still, yeah, we're still going. And so this, using the antenna up there right now, you can see this isn't actually completely typical for this newer homebrew. Being copied in Northern and Southern Ireland is regular. Getting copied into Belgium is a regular thing, into the Netherlands. Quite often I'm copied up in Scotland. But what's happening with this newer antenna is that I'm being copied in sort of northern France much more than I ever was before using the original homebrew Colinear. So, but I've never used a sort of commercially manufactured antenna on 2 meters or 70 centimeters. Well, other than things like the rubber duck you get with your Baofeng, that kind of stuff. So, so even though I won't be able to mount it quite as high as the homebrew, it'll still be quite interesting to look at the performance of that antenna, you know, 5 or 6 meters up. And so I'm running FT8 now, and I'm going to run FT8 probably all weekend until I get the other antenna up, and then I'm going to run FT8 again and see, you know, if there's a excuse me, a big difference in performance. It'll be pretty obvious. As long as I run FT8, just keep running it, and then yeah, keep going when the new antenna's put up. So that'll be so that's again going to be quite interesting. It's one of the things FT8. I mean, I've said it before, but FT8 is just one of those things that when you first become a radio amateur, you know, finding out what, you know, how to do, what to do, and then how to do it, you know, it's not a trivial thing really. You know, it really isn't. And FT8 getting out there on 10 watts. Well, it's funny actually, because I was watching the DX Commander, one of his videos, Callum, a few nights ago, and he was demonstrating how he was getting out. I think he was on 80 meters. He was using 10 watts anyway, and he was getting out, and obviously people were hearing him. But it's a bit easier for him because he's well known, and so people queue up to work him. You know, if he was relatively unknown, I don't think he'd get very far with his 10 watts, is my own opinion, because he himself wouldn't be the center of a pile up, basically, whereas, excuse me, whereas what he is well known right now. So, you know, when he's broadcasting live on his YouTube channel and says, "Oh, I'm using 10 watts tonight," guys with using 1, 2, 3, 400 watts will still line up to work him. So, don't get me wrong, I think he's really good. I think he's a really, really good advocate for ham radio, and I really like his videos. But if you're a mere mortal in the world of ham radio and you've got 10 watts, particularly when the bands are crowded, it is very, very difficult to be heard. So an FT8 kind of, you know, is an answer to that. It was for me. I spent a lot of time doing FT8 when I had a foundation license. We'd literally get home from work, switch the radio on, switch on the computer, and I'd literally sit there for hours. Yeah, I found it quite an amazing thing, really, and it was a very, very positive aspect of my early career in ham radio. And even though I've moved on a little bit, it's still a really, really useful tool for looking at propagation. You know, for looking at how well your antenna, sort of trying sort of calibrate how well a particular antenna is working. You know, it's a brilliant tool as far as I'm concerned. So and as I said, I'll be doing that this weekend on the homebrew Colinear, and then on this diamond Colinear. One other thing actually I'm going to be doing is this is my Upatero MVT 7100 scanner. One of my subscribers asked me a direct question. What he said, what he basically said was, he said it's a bit off topic, but could you do some videos or a video or videos on Airband, because this guy is into Airband, listening to Airband. And he said, would you mind connecting one of your Airband radios to your Colinear, and then just sort of like having a tune around and see what you can hear? So I kind of said yes, okay, I would do that. And this Upatero is the obvious radio, which is my scanner. I did have an ICOM ICR20, which I kind of sold because it was no good on HF, on shortwave. And then I kind of got into, you probably remember, I sort of got into recording videos of aircraft landing at Kidlington Airport or at Bryce Norton, and whilst recording the videos sort of coming into land, into approach, in approach, and with this radio, having the audio from the pilot or whatever to the tower, so basically having the communications audio whilst watching the video the plane come in. And they proved quite popular, actually. A lot of people, I think a lot of people quite like those videos. I haven't done any for a while, actually. Certainly not, but I think there's been less flights since COVID, obviously. But because I live on the flight path near Bryce Norton, we still do actually get quite a lot of jets come over. Anyway, he asked me to attach an Airband radio to my Colinear. And I'll have a go at that. And I'll probably use my Upatero to do that, and see what I can hear. I'm not sure if it's possible to hear anything sort of very long distance. I read something earlier that it's easier to hear the plane, the pilots, the communications from the plane than it is from the actual tower, which I suppose sort of makes sense, but I'm not an expert in it. But I do enjoy listening to Airband, particularly if I can actually see the plane, so that's something else I'll have a go at this weekend. If I hear anything at all, I'll probably do one video, maybe a couple, and I'll put them up specifically for that guy. But no doubt some of you might find that a little bit interesting. So there's that as well. And then finally there's the studying. So I've actually finished. I've read through the full license manual now, the whole thing, and it's just over 100. I think it was 103 pages. And I'll be honest with you, there is a lot to learn. If you haven't been to university and studied electronics, or your vocational life at work hasn't sort of centered around electronics, then there's big sections of this that are going to be, that are going to sort of take some learning. I'm not an electronics engineer. I've been interested in radio all my life. I've studied electronics when I did A-level physics many years ago, and I did study a little bit of electronics when I did my degree, but only sort of very briefly. So there's a lot to learn, and it's certainly a much bigger undertaking than the intermediate license, for example. The way that I study is pretty simple. If I've got a textbook, then I will go through and read that book and highlight all of what I consider to be the relevant sections, and then I will read through the whole thing again, and I will write down my own version of the relevant section. So effectively, I will rewrite in my own handwriting everything in this book that's examinable in a notebook, and that's part of the learning process. And then I will probably several times read through my notes again, and read possibly through the book again, and that's what I've got to do. Now, fortunately, not everything in the book is examinable, but a lot of it is. So you kind of, everything with a mortarboard symbol, you've got to know about. So there is quite a lot to learn. But obviously, it's about radio, so it's also going to be enjoyable. But that is so. This weekend, I'm going to start basically writing my own version of this as part of the revision process. And I don't actually know when the exam is actually going to take place. It all needs organising, but probably in the next maybe 2 or 3 months, I'm hoping. And I'm hoping by then I should be ready. But if you decide to go for the full license, you've got to take it seriously. Unless you, like I said, unless you're like a professional electronics engineer, and or you've been involved in ham radio for a long time, there is a lot to learn. So it's a little bit daunting, but I think it'll be okay. I think the fact that it's multiple choice certainly helps, and I think you only need 60%. So I'm hanging my hat on that basically. So there you go. So that's it. So that's it for another weekend. Yeah, gonna try and put up my diamond antenna for 77s and 2 meters. I'm going to continue to test my end-fed wire for top band on top band and 80 meters. I'm going to carry on studying, and I'm going to do a bit of airband. And I'm probably going to do a bit of HF shortwave. You guys, some of you guys will have seen the videos that I've recorded recently of Radio Tama. It's booming into Oxford at the moment. I can't ever remember hearing them so well. So and that's provided me with a little bit of inspiration to do some shortwave listening, which I might join the Panasonic. The Panasonic DR31 or RF3100L, whatever you want to call it, is upstairs on my bedside table. So that's my new bedside sort of DXing radio for at least for a while anyway. So I might have a little tune around with that on HF shortwave and see what I can hear. But otherwise, it's an action-packed weekend as usual. So you know, it's all good. And you know, I think if you guys get the opportunity to have an experiment, listen to the radio, you know, put up a video on YouTube. Who knows? You know, like I said before, we're just very lucky that we've got this brilliant hobby that can keep us all amused during these difficult times, and particularly as these times it doesn't seem to be very clear as to when all this is going to finish. So from my point of view, I'm very pleased that I've got all this stuff to keep me going, as well as work, of course. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for your support as always. I wish you good DX, a very nice weekend, and no doubt I'll speak to some of you soon on the comments on the YouTube channel. But otherwise, thanks again, and 73.